Hello and welcome to BuzziTalks. As a countdown to this year's NeoCon shows in Chicago, we are kicking off our new podcast, BuzziTalks. We will meet with designers, BuzziFriends, architects, and other experts to discuss happy, healthy workspaces, new designs, trends, innovative solutions for the workspace, and a lot more. Our first guest is Belgian designer Alain Gilles, who's joining us today to talk about one of his new designs for BuzziSpace launching at NeoCon. Alain has been collaborating with BuzziSpace for more than 10 years, and as you browse through our collection, you will find a variety of designs by him, from acoustic solutions and lighting to furniture. For you to get to know Alain a bit better, let's start out by talking about design. So Alain, what's good design for you?
I don't like to put a boundary on what design is, especially these days. I mean, it used to be very clear what design was. Basically, it was just like industrial design and that was it. And then came artistic design, then came all sorts of in-between stuff. So I think basically, even though it's not a real answer, I would say good design is whatever suits the purpose. Is if it's supposed to be art, then it should be good design that's almost like art, or that's saying something about art.
Yeah.
And if it's good industrial design, it should be very easy to produce and mass produce and everything. If it's something that has that, like what we do together, if it's something useful, it should work properly, and hopefully I think it should also make people dream. To me, that's very important. Dream. What is dreaming? Of course, do you dream about a chair? Yeah. Maybe you don't, but maybe I'm the only one dreaming about chairs. No, I mean, maybe people don't dream about a chair, but when I say dreaming, I mean kind of carry you somewhere else, that it makes you think of something. It's not just a dull product. It's not a product to which you attach a story. It's a product where I hope you feel a story, and then you project yourself. It could be, I'm not saying this is the case with BuzziSpace, it could be in a movie, it could be somewhere else, like the future. Yeah. People use products to define their corporation, to define themselves, and they try to project an image through these products. So whatever that is, yeah.
So following from your vision on good design, Alain, do you have any design heroes who inspire you, or anything else out there where you seek inspiration?
It would probably then be an architect, and it would certainly be then Oscar Niemeyer. And not, because then people will tend to understand that, I like his minimalistic curves, And I'm not talking about, to me what's important in his work, I do like his work, but it's not the shape. Why can I relate to his work? It's because of what the pieces he's done are actually saying and how understandable they are. When he did basically the high and the low chamber, so basically Parliament and Commons, or whatever it is, what it's called, the Lords and the Commons. So basically one is it's like he's using a bowl, so basically it's like a roof, right? The roof, one is closed and the other one is open. The one which is more for the public is open because you tend to vote. You were voting really for people, and the other one, not the Lords in Brazil, but the more conservative part usually, where it's people are usually not to be directly voted in or something was slightly different. It's more closed. So all these, to me, it made sense because you could perceive the story of what you were trying to say through these buildings. Yeah. So that was what matters to me, not just the shape.
However, talking about shapes, let's move on to the topic we're really here to discuss today, namely your new Buzzy table, which is in fact very distinctive for its shape. Where did you find inspiration for this new design of yours, and how do you see it fitting into the philosophy of happy, healthy workspaces?
Well, when you say clear shape, it's true. It does have a very clear shape, and I tend to also say that my work is influenced a bit like by the clear line, what people used to define, how people used to define Belgian comic books. Basically, the clear line is like typically Hergé and Tintin, Cuff, whatever you want to call him. And as opposed to like the American comics, which were usually, if you look at the old Tarzans, it was more hedged. They were creating these shadows, so more complicated. Belgium cartoons, they have the outer line is actually in black usually. That's the common stuff, and then they put color in it. And I tend to work a bit also following this logic. It's not something I want to do. I just noticed that it happens to be closer to that than anything else. Maybe it's also because as a kid I was raised reading this stuff, then your eyes are trained. And sorry, now we go back to the table. So it is in a way an extremely common table. It's almost the archetype of a certain table, and very much it could be very much like a dining table, or the table that you could find in these kitchens. Sometimes 100 years ago, even more. A table where people used to, when it was a kitchen, they would not just eat, but they would be preparing the food together. It wasn't always the ones that even eating the food that would be preparing them. Sometimes it would. It would depend on the family. But so there was also really very much like this gathering and this sense of the table that was lying. There was some kind of mass. And it was something really functional. It wasn't just defined to be beautiful. It was a practical element, and so just the inspiration came from this impression of solidity. To me, it matters when we design stuff, especially like for certain stuff for offices, to give this impression that the pieces are like rooted, that they have value. So if they have value, I hope that people will also feel that they have value, because you could very easily feel that we are almost like in a throwaway society, especially with these open space offices where you could maybe sometimes not even put the picture of your wife and kids or whatever, stuff like that. But some people like to do that. And then you had everything in your trolley, and suddenly you could be gone in a second, in a fraction of a second. You take a box, you leave. So to me, it's really about reassuring people, saying, you're there, you're part of the company, we invest in you, and hopefully because they feel reassured, then they feel maybe more lightweight to hopefully work better. And I think even if you look at the overall shape of the table, the fact that it's an oblong shape, so it's basically rectangular with large rounded ends, it's also kind of a non-conflictual table, as opposed to what you could find and what you can still find in a lot of offices, where it's more a lot of tables where people tend to gather around. They're more statutory, They use certain types of material. They also the shapes are sometimes very edgy, and it's almost scary. You feel like it's more like a competition between people. And to me, like in the kitchen, like when everybody was helping to prepare the stuff, or when you're eating together at home, if it's a dining table, it's about sharing. It's about doing stuff together.
Yeah.
And the inspiration didn't come as an office table. It's more meant as a piece that would have been used inside a house, which I think in this case for BuzziSpace does make sense, since we've always tried to make homey products even before it was the trend to make homey products for the office.
Apart from the shape, there's also something else that's very unique to Buzzy Table, and that's the materials. Generally, for many of your designs, for instance Buzzy Head, Buzzy Mirage, and now Buzzy Table, you use a variety of material combinations. Do you look towards any trends when playing around with different material setups? Or is it more a gut feeling like, yes, this will work well?
I think because, I'm a designer, right? So it's not like I'm not blind.
No.
And so, of course, I see what's happening. I don't tend to study trends. Of course, you go around and you see stuff, so you may be receptive to some trends. You may recognize yourself, or without even noticing that they're trends, you may just have a feel for something. I think the combination of material is also to try and bring something fresher, something less expected. Okay, we all know that aluminum has been used on tables, but probably not actually on a massive wooden table, because it was usually a bit more low-tech, I think, in the past. The ceramic, it's the ceramic that looks more like a marble. It's probably also a slight reference to these typical Italian tables and stuff like that. So yeah, so also another part of the design world that I also happen to work in. So yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and mixing material in general, I would say is probably if you try and mix. I'm not saying we did this in this case because they're still normal materials, right? But sometimes it's materials and colors. They're really a way to also reinterpret something differently, because a chair is a chair, a table is a table. Well, kind of. And then of course there are differences, but the main, maybe like 80% and sometimes 90 or 100%, depending on the type of table, of the functionalities will be the same. If you use a dining table, the size may have slightly changes because the size of the apartments or houses have changed, but basically a dining table is still pretty much the same as what it was 100 years ago in terms of functionality. We're very lucky because together we work on stuff that's linked to the office environment, and actually this is a place where a lot more action, a lot more change is actually happening because of the devices, because of the way, because of the change of the hierarchy also in the office, and the relationship between the people, because also of the fact that people tend to come less often to the office, will partly work at home, work at the client, and just come over for different reasons, to share, for special moments, to share stuff with their colleagues or bosses. So I think it's actually, in a way, it is a lot more exciting to be able to work with these stuff, because it's the link with the social evolutions are much stronger than what happens in the house, basically, which is kind of almost like a sanctuary, where you go and you safeguard yourself from the fast changes of what's happening around you in the world.
These were the last words from Alain this time around. If you want to learn more about Buzzy Table, discover it real life, or even meet Alain in person, we invite you to stop by our showroom at NeoCon on the 10th floor or Buzzy Lounge on the 1st floor in the Merchandise Mart. Hope to see you then, and in the meantime, stay tuned for our next episode of BuzziTalks.